Hey, Mrs. Spatola here. These are the answers for the properties from last night's homework. So please pause the video and check your work. And then you can start it up again, and then you'll see the bottom part of the page. This bottom part is just review for fractions and decimals. Percent is something new. You just have to move the decimal 2 places to the right. You may remember that from elementary school. When changing fractions to decimals, just a review, you should be dividing the numerator divided by the denominator. Top divided by bottom. Okay, let's take a look at today's lesson, which is going to be the distributive property. Today's lesson is going to be the distributive property. How can we use the distributive property to solve expressions? Well, if we take a look over here in the info box that we have over here, the distributive property is sometimes called the rainbow method. And one of the things you're going to notice is that we're going to be multiplying the number on the outside of the parentheses by each number on the inside of the parentheses. And that's how we're going to work it today. Also keep in mind that parentheses have 2 jobs in math. Parentheses can mean do this first when we're focusing on the order of operations, or it can also mean multiply. Today with the distributive property, we're going to focus on the multiply part. Now let's take a look at the do now. Today's do now focuses on some questions that we had in previous lessons about the order of operations. True or false, number 1. In the order of operations, A, multiplication is always before division. True or false? Well, that is false, correct. And that's false because it's multiplication or division, whichever comes in the problem from left to right. Letter B, parentheses are always first. And that would be true. Awesome. Letter C, exponents. Let's talk about exponents. Exponents come before parentheses. Well, think about it. If we write out the word over here, PEMDAS, and by the way, that's a great strategy. We can see that exponents come after, so this would be correct. False. If you said false, you were correct. And the last one, addition always. Be careful of words that always contain words like never or always, because those are a little tricky, but addition always comes before subtraction. True or false? That would be false. If you said false, you did a great job. Nice little review. So after learning about a few different properties yesterday, the last property that we're going to look at least in 6th grade, is going to be the distributive property. And when we focus on the distributive property, we like to think about distribute or give out. And there are 2 ways to use the distributive property going forward. One is to actually distribute a number, and you're going to see we're going to be multiplying one number on the outside of the parentheses by numbers on the inside. And then there's another method that we're going to look at called the break apart and then distribute. So we have a couple of things to look at. So let's take a look at the distribute part first. So when we think of the distributive property, we think of the word distribute. Distribute means to give out. And distribute in math means to give to each number. And in this problem, we're going to multiply each addend, the numbers we add together are called addends, by the 8. So with this first problem, we look at 8 times 5 plus 3. Well, right away you would say, okay, well that looks like an order of operations expression, and I'm going to add the 5 plus 3, and then I know 8 times 8 is 64. Well, that is not correct. What you have to be careful about in math is always following the directions. The directions will tell you what to do. Following the directions and, of course, identify the question. In this particular case, what they want you to do, if it says to use the distributive property or distribute, that means that the number on the outside is going to be multiplied first by the number on the inside of the parentheses that comes first, And then you're going to multiply that same number by the second number inside the parentheses. Let's take a step down and look again. So now here it's 8 times 5. You can put the arrows either above or below. So I would have to multiply 8 times 5. Now notice that 8 times 5 that I'm multiplying right here is written over on this side. So there's my 8 times 5. Plus, there's a plus on the inside. And then I'm going to multiply 8 times 3. And if I go over to the other side of the problem, I see there is my 8 times 3. And then we start to follow the order of operations here. Okay, we multiply now 8 times 5. That means multiply. So that really means 8 times 5, which is 40. And then this over here means 8 times 3, which is 24. Okay. 40 plus 24, final answer, you can even put it in your calculator, is 64, and you are done. Now remember, the directions will tell you always what to do. Rewrite each using the distributive property. And until we get used to these, I do want you to draw the arrows in the original problem. So the first one, letter A, is 2 times 6 plus 2 times 4. Now you can write it on the side, or you can even write it below it if you wish. In this case, I'm going to write it on the side. So it's 2 times 6 plus, and then I have my 2 times 4, and I'm putting that in the parentheses. Then neatly, I just work my way down. Now I can just solve it. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 2 times 4 is 8, and 12 plus 8, final answer is 20, and you are done. Now let's look at letter B. 3 times 4 plus 3 times 2. So you're going to distribute the 3 on the 4. So that means 3, and you're jumping over the parentheses, so that means multiply. Put the parentheses in. 3 times 4 plus, now the second number, 3 times 2. Remember, everything in math is fair. So whatever you do to one, you have to do to the other. In this case, we're multiplying each number by 3. Here we go. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 3 times 2 is 6. Final answer is 18. Now let's try letter C. Notice the 4 is on the outside, on the opposite side. We're just going to scoot back and then just multiply it the opposite way. Sometimes you'll see it written this way also. So in this case here, that's equal to 4 times 3. Now, some people ask, Mrs. Patola, can I do 4 times 7 first? Of course you can. It's absolutely fine. Plus, and then we have the 4 times 7, 4 times 7 in parentheses, and then we just solve. 4 times 3 is 12, plus, a lot of 12s in the first numbers, and 4 times 7, which is 28. And our final answer is 40. Now we're going to try each of the remaining problems. I'm going to ask you to try it on your own, and then you're going to pause the video and then check your work. Let's look at letter D. So when we focus on letter D, we see 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. That's the way it has to be written. I'm going to show you. Some students might do this. Watch. 2 times 3 plus 4 is 7, and that's 14. There's my answer. No, that's not right. Don't do that. It says distribute. You have to multiply the 2 on both the 3 and the 4. Be careful. So let's try that one together here. 2 times 3 plus 2 times 4. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 2 times 4 is 8. Final answer is 14, just like the order of operations. For letter E, we're going to multiply 4 times 5. Now notice inside there's a subtraction sign. Be really careful. And then we have minus 4 times 2. So we'll take a look at that. 4 times 5 minus 4 times 2. 4 times 5 is 20, minus 4 times 2 is 8. 20 minus 8 is 12. I'm going to ask you to try the remaining problems on your own now. And there are the answers for letter F, which is 27, and G, the answer is 35. Now let's take a look at the break apart method. Great job. Nice job with the distributive property going forward. Now we're going to take a look at another way to use the distributive property, and this is called the break apart. So with the distributive property, when we do the break apart method, basically we're going to be doing relatively the same thing, but before we distribute the number on the outside of the parentheses, we have to break apart a number first, and then we're going to continue. So I know that sounds a little confusing, right? But it's really not. Let's take a look at exactly what I mean. So here is our first example, and it says 6 times 17, break apart the 17. Think instead, now look, the 17, we're going to break it apart as 10 plus 7. We're going to put whatever the second number is inside the parentheses. So we're going to break it up by the 10s and then the 1s. So this is 10 plus 7. And we still keep that 6 on the outside, which still means multiply. Then we're going to distribute it. By the way, some of you might be saying, well, why am I going to need this? In algebra, trust me, next year you're going to need it. A lot of times, boys and girls in 6th grade, they say, why do I have to do it this way? Why is she making me do it this way? It's because in 7th grade, your teacher is going to need you to do certain things in certain ways, and that's what algebra is all about. So what I'd like you to do is write the original problem. We're going to do the work over here. 6 times 17, write this down over here. And then what did we do? We broke apart the 17. We made it 6, and then in parentheses, 10 plus 7. We're breaking apart the second number. Then we actually did the distributive property. We do the 6 times 10, and you could do it on the outside over here, or just very simply, you can just do it right below. 6 times 10 plus 6 times 7. And then you just multiply. 6 times 10 is 60, plus 6 times 7 is 42. And our final answer is 102. And there you go. And then you can see that this work over here matches. By the way, I hope this student isn't anyone you would know. He looks a little confused, but you guys are awesome in math, so I know that's not you. Now let's take a look at some straight examples. It says try these. Use break apart, then distribute. And then it says you could use the example above to help you. All right, letter A, 7 times 23. And again, you could write it below or on the side. If I break apart this 23, it would be 7 times 20 plus 3. There you have it. And now all you're going to do is multiply using the distributive property. 7 times 20, which is 7 times 20, plus 7 times 3. And then I'm going to continue. 7 times 20 is 140, plus 7 times 3 is 21. My final answer is 161. All right, great job. Let's take a look at example B. Now it's 6 times 14. 6 times, now what number would go on the inside? The second number we're going to break apart. So we're breaking apart the 14, so that would be 10 plus 4. 10 plus 4 is 14. Now I'm simply going to distribute. I have 6 times 10 plus 6 times 4. 6 times 10 plus 6 times 4. 6 times 10 is 60, plus 6 times 4 is 24. Final answer is 102. Let's go on to letter C. Letter C is a little more of the same. So I have 8 times 31. I'm going to use the break apart and then apply the distributive property. So I have 8 times 30 plus 1. What you're looking to do is figure out, how do I break apart this number, and I put it inside the parentheses. And then I simply apply the distributive property. So this becomes 8 times 30 plus 8 times 1. And I know some of you are like, Mrs. Spatola, I can do this in my head. I get it. But you have to show the work for credit. This is math. If it was mental math, you would probably get an A. But this is math class in 6th grade, and you have to show your work in order to get full credit. All right, let's go on to letter D. Now, letter D looks a little different. Remember, the parentheses sign means to multiply. So in this case here, I'm going to rewrite it as 5 times 10 plus 6. And then I apply the distributive property. 5 times 10 plus 5 times 6. 50 plus 30. Final answer is 80. Once you get into a groove, it's kind of cool. It's the same thing pretty much over and over. It's just straight practice. Let's keep going. Now, letter E looks a little different because now I have a 3-digit number. So that means 5 times 103. Well, in this case here, we're just going to rewrite it. Any guesses? 5 times, see if you can guess, 100 plus 3. 5 times 100. Now, at this point here, when you break it apart, you should be able to see the math mentally. Even though you have to write it out, you should see it mentally. And your final answer is 515. Try the remaining 3 on your own. Pause the video. Let's go to letter F. Try this one on your own, and then restart to check it. And the answer to letter F is 1,836. Let's go on and try letters G and H. And there you have the answer to letter G, 348. And last but not least, let's take a final look at letter H. And there you have the answer to letter H, which is 392. All right, great job today. We took a good look at the distributive property. We looked at the distributive property going forward and the break apart method. And the next page is your homework page, which is going to be a little combination of distributive going forward and the break apart. Let's just take a quick look. This is your homework page practice. Notice it says use the distributive property to evaluate each. So for some of them, just real quick, for example, number 1, I'll just do that one quickly with you. It says 6 times 32 equals, now notice, sometimes we give you a little bit of clues. 6 times 30 plus 6 times 2. And then you go ahead and you would solve. Okay, looking through anything unusual, not really. Number 3, you have a subtraction. Number 4, you have a subtraction. And everything else, you should be good to go. All right, great job with the distributive property. Have fun and have a great day.